make sure I don't have lipstick on my teeth because... Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Ah! I don't know what that was. I am surrounded by books right now. Like, I have books spread all over. And let's just jump into it. Mid-year book freakout tag. Going through all the books that I have read for the year, I feel like I haven't read much. I don't know if that happens to anybody else, but I feel like I've read so much more. And interestingly enough, for one of the prompts, which is a sequel that you read, the best sequel you've read, I only read one sequel this year, but it wasn't even on my list of read books, which is weird. So I'm wondering how many more books like that are not on the list. Like, that, I just found that so weird. So I'm gonna have to go through, because I handwrite my books anyways that I have read for the year, and I have to make sure that all of them are on there. This tag is a little bit hard for me to do because I just finished reading a book like literally an hour ago, and I want to use that book for everything because it is the book that is really fresh on my mind, that I loved so much. So I wanted to use this one book for almost all the prompts, but I can't because duh. But I don't know if that happens to anybody else. It's just so hard to do when you have books fresh in your mind and you have to go back and think about books that you read in January that you really can't remember much of. So I'm gonna do my best. I try to pick a very wide diverse of books throughout the year that I have read. So let's just get into it. The first question is the best book that I have read so far. I have such a mess here that I don't even know what books I picked for that. Okay, in true Marcy fashion, I can't just pick one book, so I picked two books. So two of the best books that I have read so far this year is the first one being Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This was my first dive into Brandon Sanderson, so I have a deep love for this book. I remember loving it. I remember like just feeling empowered by this book, by the main character, and I just really loved it. I have been wanting to read Sanderson for such a long time, and I think just the fact that I achieved that this year made me super happy, so I had to include Elantris on here. I absolutely loved it. And then the second book is Docile by K.M. Spara. Oh, this book, I'm gonna use this book for another prompt in this tag. I'm just warning you because this book was so amazing. I gave this one 5 stars. I had so many books that I loved this year, but I think this one really impacted me throughout my reading, and I loved it so much. It was deep, it was crazy. I'm not giving synopsis because especially the books that I have read earlier on, I would have to go through my reviews and see what I felt, or read the synopsis to sort of give you a synopsis, and I'm just gonna be here forever, so I'm not gonna do that. Basically, this is about the rich owning people that have debt so that the people that have debt can pay off their debt. They get paid to be their slaves, basically, in a nutshell. But it has so much depth, so much, it's just so good. So one of the best books I've read so far this year. Second question is best sequel that you have read so far this year. And this is the one. I've only read one sequel this year, and that is Legendary. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I explained in my wrap-up how I loved Caraval, and this had potential to be loved as well. But I believe I read this in either March or in April at the beginning of all this quarantine and pandemic situation that we are going through. And so I really couldn't focus. I remember I had to start this book like 4 times. I buddy read this with my friend Tali, and I couldn't get into it. Finally, I got into it. But because of the circumstances, I feel like I didn't enjoy the story as much as I should have because honestly, I feel like this one has so much more vibrancy, so much more story than the first book. But for whatever reason, COVID-19, I'm going to say, it didn't grip me as like Caraval did. but it is the only sequel that I've read, so that's why it's going up for this question. Next one is new release you haven't read yet but want to. Again, I have a stack of 4 books because these 4 books I've been wanting to read. I've been pining over since before their release, and I still haven't read it yet. First one being My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I wanted to read this as soon as I got it in, as soon as it was delivered, but here we are months later. I think this released in March, and here we are 3 months later and I haven't read it yet. Next one is Dead Girl Bruised by David Sodergren. This is another one that released this year that I was dying to read, especially because it's like a noir slasher kind of novel, and that's just my jam. Still haven't read it. Another one we just received, I think it was last month or this month, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I love his books. I have this one to read, and then The Last Time I Lied, I believe, I haven't read yet. So this is another one. And then last but definitely not least is The Deep by Alma Katsu. I actually received this from the publisher. I've received a finished copy to review, but being that I moved from Texas, they actually shipped it to Texas, and I just didn't get it until recently. So I'm dying to read this one. I mean, this just sounds so amazing, but here we are. Still have not read it. Story of my life. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I have a little list here. Where's my list? Did I sit on it? Found it. I'm sure there are plenty more, but these are just the ones that came to mind right away when I read that question, and so these are the ones I'm going to talk about. The first one is Survivor Song. Now this one actually comes out in July, the first or second week of July. I already have it pre-ordered. I'm dying to read it. It's by Paul Tremblay, and it has to do with a disease or like a pandemic that's happening, and which I find super cool because this arc has been circulating since January, and again it releases in July, so he predicted the future. That's the first one. The next one is The Living Dead, which I actually have an arc of, and I am actually 200 pages in for that one. It was supposed to release this month in June, but it got pushed back to August, so I'm just gonna mention it. I'm actually pushing it back to continue reading it closer to the release date. And then the third one is Clowns in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. I don't know if it's Cesare or Cesare, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name, but I have been wanting this book forever. My friend Callie over on Instagram, she talked about this book a couple months ago, and I was like, I need this book. So I believe that one comes out in August or September. I believe it's August. I'll leave all the details down below for all these books that are releasing. But it's a horror novel, and I need it in my life, and a couple of my friends have read it and they say it's amazing. Number 5 is Biggest Disappointment, and I'm gonna go with The Whisper Man by Alex North. I actually just read this month, and I thought I was gonna like it more than I did. I thought it was gonna have creepier vibes than it did. Obviously this is a thriller novel, but it was just lacking something for me, and I thought this was gonna be a 5-star read, but I ended up giving it 3 stars, which is still a good rating. I mean, I liked the plot and the storyline. Everybody was saying how dark this book is, and I should know better than to listen to when a non-horror reader says that it has creepy vibes, because being that they're non-horror readers, obviously they haven't read the books that I have read with dark and creepy tones. I think that I just let myself be led in a path that I should have known better of. Maybe if I would have gone in without those creepy dark tones that everybody was talking about, if I would have gone in without thinking about that, I would have enjoyed it more. But nevertheless, it was still a good book. I gave it 3 stars, but it was, I thought it was going to be 5 stars. Biggest surprise, and for that one I'm going to have to go with The Magpie Coffin by Willie E. Young. This is the first installment in the Splatter Western series. I actually talk about this in my May wrap-up, which should be going up before this. But this was a 5-star read to me. This is a Western. This whole series is a Splatter Western, so they're all Westerns. And being that I am not a huge Western lover in the movie sense of things, I didn't think I was gonna love Western books so much. This is about my 3rd or 4th Western that I read. mostly in horror, and I am just obsessed with it. I love it. I love how gory a Western can be just normally. So when you bring it into the splatter horror genre or realm of things, it just, it gives it that extra notch, that extra goriness, and it was just wonderful. I loved this book so much. I have already read book 2 in the series, and I'm about to start book 3 at the beginning of July, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, these covers are stunning. Favorite new author. And for this, I chose K.A. Tucker. I read The Simple Wild last month. I've been wanting to read this because Chelsea Palmer always talks about this book, and when she talked about the synopsis, it really interested me, but being that this is not a genre that I usually read, I sort of like just put it at the bottom of my want to read list. And last month, the Buddy Reads to Die For pick was The Simple Wild, so I was like, yes, I am in. I read this in 24 hours. It was so good. We actually got to talk to the author via Zoom, and it was just so good that I ended up, while we were on the Zoom, I ended up buying book 2 and another one of her books. So I love the way she writes. I love the way she weaves a story and just builds up a story. This was just so good. I loved it. I ended up giving this one 5 stars, but I love K.A. Tucker's writing. It just flows, and she really makes you be part of the story, which is what I felt with this one. So new author, favorite new author to me. And she has a lot of books out. I didn't know that. New fictional crush. I have a few because I am a hopeless romantic, and I fall in love with every character I meet, almost. But don't tell my husband, because I love my husband most of all, but there's just times where you just meet a character and you're just like, yes. So I'm gonna name 3 of them. The first one I am going to name, what? Mansion? What is that? The first one I'm gonna mention is Salem Covington from Magpie Coffin. The Magpie Coffin. He gave me Roland vibes up the wazoo. What? What does that even mean? Yeah, he's a badass. He don't give an F, and to me, he was just like Roland, like just a sexy man. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm gonna have to go with Jonah from The Simple Wild. I love me a man with a beard, and he has the beard of all beards, and Kala doesn't even like it. Why? Like, beards are just so sexy. So that's number 2. I mean, and just his way of being and his sense of humor, I just loved it. I laughed, I cried with his character so much. And the third one is the book that I finished reading an hour ago, and I already forgot his name. And that is Augustus from Beach Read. I love him so much. He is so broken. He is so just broken. I mean, they both are. I just loved everything about Augustus. I love how he was with January, how raw he is, how emotional he is, even with everything that he's going through. I fell in love with him, so I had to mention him. And again, I just finished reading that book an hour ago, so I wanted to use that book for every single prompt that I could have, but I didn't because I needed diversity. Okay, okay, okay. Who was I going with for newest favorite character? Newest favorite character, I'm gonna go with Serene from Elantris. I loved how kick-ass she was. I loved how she just took care of business. I loved how she didn't care that she was a woman. She inserted herself into the politics and into the man's world, and she just kicked ass. So definitely she is my favorite character so far this year. Second runner-up, and I wasn't planning on mentioning this one, but I love this character as well, is Emojine from Devil's Creek. This is another one. She was a kick-ass character, and she went where nobody else would go to save her family, and she was just in charge. She just took charge of everything, left everything prepared for her grandson, and I really loved her character as well. These women are so kick-ass. I love it. The next question is book that made you cry, and again, it's gonna be a repeat book from before. I am a huge crier when it comes to movies, books, commercials. I cry in commercials, whatever. Let's just move along. You know, just whatever. I do. I'm a big crier. And it's funny because I'm a very hard person, and like I have feelings but when it comes to like books and stories, I just not. I mean, it is. And a book that there's been many books that made me cry. I mean, Beach Read made me cry, but the book that made me ugly cry is Docile. I literally had to put this book down for a couple days. I mean, I wanted to finish it so bad. This could have been a book that I could have finished in 1 or 2 days, but it took me about, I think it was a week or two, maybe 2 weeks, because I had to put this book down because I could not stop crying. I would just be sitting on the couch like 3 days later, and I would think about it and I would start crying. This broke me in so many ways, so it's the only book for this question, although I cried with many books this year. Book that made me happy. Beach Read. This is about 2 writers, and they are staying at the same little town, or same little beach town. They're actually neighbors, and they're both having writer's block, and so they write different genres. She writes romance and he writes true crime, kind of like not happy endings kind of book, like darker books. And so they create this deal where they're each gonna write the other person's genre. So he's gonna write about romance, which is not his forte, I mean, not even in life, and she's going to write about like darker themes. So this book made me so happy. I actually finished this in 24 hours, and I can't stop talking about this. It was 5 stars, and if you haven't read this, and even if this isn't your usual genre, because you guys know I'm a horror reader at heart, but this, sometimes you need a little sprinkle of light and fun and funny, and I cried with this one too, so, but it made me really happy. I just repeated myself. What a surprise. Most beautiful book that you have bought or received this year. Again, I have a pile. First one that I'm going to talk about is the Magpie Coffin. These covers, I love them so much. They all have the same color scheme. It's the same artist. I don't have book 2 because they sent us an e-arc of that, but we are getting the physical copies. They are on their way, and I can't wait to have all these books because these covers just do something to me. But that one was sent to me. I didn't buy that one, but I have bought 4 books this year. No, I've bought 100 books this year, but there's 4 that I love the cover so much of, so we're gonna talk about 4. Hey, I know that you're only supposed to pick 1, but this is my video, it's my rules, and we are just going to do more than 1. The first one is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It's just so pretty. I don't know what this is about. All I know is that Riley Marie talked about it and she loved it, and I liked what she said about it. I can't remember what it was now, but I remember saying I need that book, so I bought it. I am so hot right now. So hot, and I want to pick up my hair, but I always have my hair picked up, so I'm trying to leave it loose and I'm trying to let it breathe, but whatever. This next book came out last year, but I just finished buying it a couple weeks ago because I was trying to incorporate more Black authors into my piles, into my TBR. And this one is one that I have eyed since it released last year, and I always thought it was so beautiful. But I'm low-key intimidated by this book, so that's why I didn't buy it then, but I ended up buying it now, and my cover is actually a little bit ruined, but it came like that, but whatever. And it is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I mean, can we talk about this cover? It is just stunning. And mine came with crinkles in the outer layer of the cover. So in that clear, I don't know if you can see those lines, they're not supposed to be there, but beautiful book. Another one, these covers, this is actually a sequel, and these covers just, I love the first one, and this one is just as beautiful, and that is Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. I already read the first book when it first came out, but I have yet to read the second one. But these covers just do something to me. And I don't know if you can tell, but I just noticed right now, all these books have some sort of red and teal and black incorporated into them, like bluish, teal, red. And I love that color combo. This one has the sky. It's a little bit more pinkish, the red, but still with the teal tones to it. I love it. And the fourth one is The Deep by River Solomon. I mean, I love mermaids. Mermaids? What are mermaids? I love mermaids and I love the water. I grew up in Miami, Florida. I was literally raised in the water by the beach in a pool. My mom literally had me at the beach while I was crawling. So I love the water. I love mermaid stories. And so this one I've been eyeing for a really long time, and I thought it was going to be bigger. It's a really small book, but I just love this cover so much. So those are my 4. And the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? All of them. I mean, really. All of them. There are so many. I can give you a list of about 50 books that I really want to read by the end of the year, but I don't think that'll happen. I'm just gonna give you guys 3 because I'm Marcy. Hi, nice to meet you. The first one is one that I thought I was gonna read as soon as I received it, but I want to read the rest of this, reread the rest of the series, so I haven't gotten to it. And that is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I love the Hunger Games world. It's one of my favorites, but I really want to I mean, it's a thick one. I really want to reread the series before getting to this one. Although I know this is a prequel technically, but whatever. The next one is Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker. I really want to read this before the year's over because I loved Wild at Heart. This is Wild at Heart. I love The Simple Wild so much that I really don't want the year to end before reading its sequel, because I loved these characters and I really want to know where it's going while it's still fresh in my mind. So I really want to read that one. And then this one is by TJ Klune. It is Wolf Song. Now again, I've heard Chelsea Palmer talk about this book. It's a chunker. I believe there's 3 or 4 books in this series, but when she talked about it, I don't remember much other than there's these kids that are actually werewolves, and it's like a friendship kind of thing, but it's dark at the same time. And I loved the cover to this. I love how this book feels. But yeah, I do want to get to this one because, like I said, I think there's 3 or 4 books in the series, and I want to read this. And I just realized, I mean, not just realized, but I had bought this book like, I don't know, last month or the month before last. And when I went to buy the house at the Cerulean Sea, I saw it was the same author, and I was like, super cool. I haven't read anything by this author yet, so I'm really excited to read this one as well. So I want to get to it before the year is over. So that's it, you guys. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. Yeah, that's it. I was kind of stuck because I have these 4 books here, but this is actually for another video, and I'm like, wait, what did I miss? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favorite book of the year has been so far down in the comment section. Let's talk books. Thank you so much for watching. I never say this, but if you like what you see and you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!